Donald Crafton. I'm in the Department of Film, Television, and Theater, and it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest tonight. Krzysztof Zanussi is a storyteller. One knows that from listening to his colorful, intriguing, and convoluted tales of his past life and the many movie-worthy experiences he has lived through. But more precisely, he is a film storyteller. One gathers that by watching just a few of his 20 or so feature films. He expertly uses the tools of motion pictures to create captivating images, seductive dramatic moments, and sensuous expressions, and then weaves them into complex narratives through lighting, editing, and sound. But these film stories are not just yarns, stories designed to entertain, then to be forgotten. Rather, they are compelling because we sense they're deeply personal. They are romanacles that refer to actions, situations, and especially memories. Memories of Zanussi's life shared with us, but aestheticized and cinematized. This is what makes his films so indelible and so haunting. We don't know the answers to the questions, but because they're his questions and we have to assume his answers, except that based on his remarks yesterday during a frank and revelatory presentation, it seems that what defines a universal question is exactly its ultimate unanswerability. Through the characters in his films who share some aspects of Zanussi, the person, we may reconstruct some of the mental life of Zanussi, the artist. These film personae seem to brush against, in passing, certain elements of the filmmaker's biographical and intellectual evolution. Krzysztof Zanussi was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1939. His life, therefore, coincides with the traumas of war, recovery, and occupation in his homeland throughout most of the second half of the 20th century. This profoundly affected his later artistic expression, as it did others of that generation, including filmmakers Krzysztof Kieślowski, Jerzy Skolimowski, and the somewhat older Roman Polanski and Andrzej Wajda. In addition to sharing some of the penchant of those filmmakers for combining surrealism and facticity, we might also compare Zanussi's reference for the cinema as a way to bare the soul with Ingmar Bergman or Robert Bresson. Zanussi's academic trajectory took him from the study of philosophy to physics to cinema. He trained at the famous film school in Łódź, the best conservatory in Poland, if not all of Europe, in the 1960s. From the time of his first major work, Illuminations, 1973, his films have been archetypal tales of personal growth, revelation, and finally, a coming to terms with the conditions of existence, sometimes by way of religious belief. The protagonist's voyage through the realms of science, the mind, and finally the spirit, often guided by a sage mentor. In Illuminations, which Zanussi described yesterday as part essay and part narrative, we already see life posed as a question and not a fact. A young scientist is forced to confront the dichotomy of his world of reason and fact and that of the senses, and his frustratingly unempirical love for a woman whom he marries with illuminating results. In his 1982 English language film, Imperative, the Kantian title introduces an agnostic physicist and his life-loving lover, a biologist. In the optimistic ending, he finds reconciliation when he finds God. The list of awards and honors that Zanussi has won is too long to read, but they include the festivals of Berlin, Cannes, Chicago, Locarno, and Moscow. Besides being a filmmaker, Zanussi is also renowned as an educator, teaching at the Silesian University and at the European Graduate School. He is also a director associated with the Tor Film Studio in Warsaw, the state-operated film production company, where many of his recent films, including tonight's film Foreign Body, was produced. He is also an author, having written several books on amateur film, as well as other aspects of the cinema, and has a very varied and colorful career. Before he speaks tonight, he's asked us to show a short film just as a kind of aperitif to set the mood, and then I'll come back to introduce him. So here we have The Lady and the Ermine.
My name is Krzysztof Zanussi. I am a filmmaker, and I'm Polish, although my name sounds Italian. And this is Krakow, a former capital of Poland, a medieval city full of historical monuments and museums. Let me invite you to have a short look at Krakow in winter. This is the Jagiellonian University, the sixth oldest university in Europe, where Nicolaus Copernicus studied. The royal castle and the cathedral. This museum is named after the founder, Prince Czartoryski, and it houses my favorite painting, which I would like to present to you, The Lady with an Ermine by Leonardo da Vinci. Isn't she beautiful? I'm sorry to say that very many people don't even know that this painting exists. The Lady with an Ermine has been totally overshadowed by the notorious Mona Lisa Gioconda from the Louvre. Would you like to compare them both? Which one you prefer? Mona Lisa has a beautiful landscape behind her, and my favorite, Lady with an Ermine, sits against the black background only, but this can be easily improved. In exchange for the non-existent landscape in the background, the lady in Krakow keeps in her arms a strange little animal. Let specialists dispute whether it is really an ermine in its winter coat, or just a weasel considered a symbol of debauchery. The lady portrayed by Leonardo is believed to be Cecilia Gallerani, a mistress of Lodovico Sforza. Would such a lady really be portrayed with an animal symbolizing chastity held on her arms? Who knows? Let us have a look at her once again. Isn't she gorgeous? Then why is she so much less known to the public than her arch-rival from the Louvre? The Louvre is a better address. Mona Lisa takes some of her prestige from the place where she is exposed. Had she been in Krakow instead, would so many people know of her? Certainly not. But as you are now in Krakow with me, let us have once more a glimpse of both of them. Who is more beautiful, Gioconda or Cecilia? I have no doubts. What about you?
It's our privilege and honor on behalf of the Nanovic Institute to welcome back to the University of Notre Dame Professor Krzysztof Zanussi.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy that I can present to you today my latest feature film that premiered in Toronto at the festival a year ago, I think in October. So when I was here, it was still unavailable for public screenings. And since then, it was shown on many festivals, but it also caused a very strong opposition, mostly from the circles of radical feminists. So I am a public enemy in my country from the point of view of radical combative feminists. And I will bring it to your judgment if they are right or wrong. I will tell you a few points about how the script was conceived, because like in most of my films, there are some real facts and real characters behind. There is a cousin of mine, a quite attractive lady, having good profession, who suddenly, approaching her 30s, decided to become a nun and closed her civil life and started a new life as a nun. It was a shock to all of us. So I wrote a theater stage play about her, and some little fragment of this play you will see now reproduced in the film, because the play was later on filmed for Polish television. So that's one motive. There is another motive, which is quite simple. I'm an opera goer. I'm of Italian extraction, so you may expect me to love opera. They sometimes direct operas. And I noticed in front of Warsaw Opera a beggar, a young man, who was collecting money for beer, so for no serious reason. And I felt that something is not true. I spoke to him. You know, the moment when people leave opera is very short. And he admitted, yes, that this is not the real reason. He was collecting money for something far more important. But his pride didn't allow him to admit that there is a serious reason behind. He told me, I will collect money if people give it frivolously for my beer. I tried to help him and he refused. And it was a big fight because he absolutely said he doesn't want anybody to give any donation out of pity. I thought it is an interesting case of somebody who is opposing God's decision, and I thought it will be intriguing to see that such people sometimes are rewarded by God to their own surprise. So that's the second motive. The third motive is that one of my friends started to work in a big international company and corporation, and the situation of a Catholic in such institution is far more complicated than I expected. So it is part of my story in the film. There is a reference to the movement which you are probably familiar with, which is Italian movement of Catholic revival called Focolari, and Focolarini are members of this movement. But as I collaborated with them, they asked me not to give their name on the film, because they have very nice principle. People should not know that they are active Catholics unless people ask, why do you act as you act? But they don't want to have a banner to say we are Catholics. And they are merging with life. So I brought this element. And the last one, which is probably most important for to be explained. We are having a society that was suffering 40 years of dictatorship, 40 years of violence, communist violence. And only some people who were guilty were punished or have shown some repentance. Most people did not. They escaped the justice, and they don't want to admit their wrongdoing. And I strongly believe as an artist that evil is reproduced if not repented. And you will see the character of the mother, who is Stalin's persecutor. It is absolutely one-to-one portrait of a real person. And these of you who have seen maybe a film of my colleague that got Oscar award last year, Ida, you will see that the same character appears in his film because we both knew the same lady. She passed away quite recently, and she was guilty of the death of a couple of patriots, totally innocent, and she never repented. She said that was the truth of that time, and I think I was right doing it, knowing that she sends innocent people to death. So I thought this is an important element, and I put it all together. It is a co-production between Italy, Poland, and Russia. Please note that all evil in Russia that you see is brought by the West. It is not Russian evil. There is a horrible prison, but prisons are horrible universally, except maybe some Scandinavian countries and Switzerland. But otherwise, this is very common. Some Russians were offended that the image of Russia is negative. It's not true. And please note the Orthodox monk who speaks about something what is to me a mystery, a vocation. You can explain why some people suddenly decide to change their life. If you explain it, means you don't understand it, because it is a mystery why some people have this voice, inner voice that tells them that they must do it. So I brought it to the film because I thought it is important as a view. And the final line of the film is about freedom that may serve for nothing, freedom that does not help at all. So that's more or less what I would like to tell you before the film. I will be here to face your criticism and to see your remarks. Maybe you will be as angry and cross with me as Polish feminists are, but I'm not an anti-feminist by no means. I only think that some women are also evil, and not only men. And the clash is about that this attitude which I criticize is considered modern by many people. And I think it's not modern, it's simply evil. And that's where is the bone of contingence. So I think I speak too much. I leave you with my film. Maybe last remark. In all my long career, I have shot almost 40 feature films and many shorts. I always worked with the same composer, with whom I shared many views. He was an ardent Catholic. He passed away a year ago. And he wrote music to all of my films. But he wrote also music to the films of many other directors. And I was always very jealous that his music written to other people, like Francis Ford Coppola, he wrote the Dracula for him, the score of Dracula, or Portrait of a Lady of Jane Campion, of the pianist of Polanski. This is all his music. And as I was reproaching him, why do you write such a good music to my competitors, he was saying, make such a good film, I will write you such a good music. So you listen to his music. This is the last music, and it's already a compilation of some previous musics, because he only started to write the score and he passed away. So whenever I show this film, I try to remind of him. He wrote lots of religious music, and he was a very religious man. So that is all I can tell you now, and I will be here at the end of the film. Thank you.